and welcome to another edition of AppSec Decoded. I'm Taylor Armerding, security advocate with the Synopsys Software Integrity Group, and today we're going to be talking about software vulnerabilities, the defects that every legitimate organization is trying to eliminate and every criminal hacker is trying to exploit. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about the recently released 2023 Software Vulnerability Snapshot report by the Synopsys Cybersecurity Research Center. Joining me to talk about that is one of our resident experts on the topic, Chai Bhatt, Security Solutions Manager with the Synopsys Software Integrity Group. Finding critical vulnerabilities takes a combination of automated testing along with skilled humans to conduct penetration testing. And, that means people and technology working together. And so talk a little bit about that combination. What testing tools does the report recommend, and what's the value of pen testing?
One of the things that we've seen over the last 3 years is a phenomena or a methodology that's called shift everywhere.
Yes,
right? So
right.
we first saw that in the BSIMM 3 years ago, and we've been seeing the increase in the implementation of shift everywhere across organizations.
That's
so
right.
This year, Forrester, in their research and their 2023 report for the state of application security, also noted that they are seeing the proliferation of shift everywhere across organizations as well. So that kind of validates what's going on in the industry.
Absolutely.
And what shift everywhere, and it makes perfect sense, right? Because you're introducing vulnerabilities into your code that are different forms and types of vulnerabilities and across different periods in the SDLC. So shift everywhere is that you're testing. It's not just testing to the left, but you're testing everywhere. So every phase of the SDLC has some form of security testing as often and as frequently as possible, as soon as the artifact is available. So it could be a piece of code. As soon as you have a piece of code, you're testing it, right? Yep. So and you're generating the results. If you find critical vulnerabilities, you're fixing them right away. The earlier you fix them, the more money you save, obviously. So and that starts right in the beginning, right? Yep. So believe it or not, it actually starts in the planning and the design phase of the SDLC, even before you have written any code, right? As you're architecting the application. Again, I think a few years ago, IEEE did a study which showed that close to 50% of all the flaws in your application are design flaws. Your basic architecture of the application is flawed. And so no matter if the foundation of your house has flaws in it, the structure you put on top of it is completely worthless because the foundation that it sits on is flawed, right? So
that's a perfect image. Yeah.
Exactly. So 50% of defects can be attributed to design flaws, was the findings of the study. And which is scary because design flaws, you can do automated testing, you can do SAST, DAST, all kinds of SCA, but you're not going to find a design flaw because those forms of testing are good to find vulnerabilities, but they're not good to find design flaws, right? You just can't find them. So you could potentially be putting your application into production with a bunch of design flaws that you don't even know about. And you look at hacks that have happened in the past 3, 4, 5 years, some of the high profile hacks that have happened that have happened because of design flaws. There was adequate automated testing, but there was a design flaw, and you just couldn't find it, and it ultimately got exploited. So that's huge, right? Because perhaps that explains why the pre-production and production apps that we tested in this study maybe had so many vulnerabilities. Perhaps they were design flaws because and that's why the automated testing wasn't able to detect them, perhaps, right? So so the way you detect a design flaw is you do threat modeling right in the planning phase of the design phase of the SDLC, right? So you make sure that your application is architected correctly, and you avoid design flaws that way. So that's one aspect. And obviously, as you're coding, you're doing SAST, your traditional SAST, you're doing SCA for open source and third-party software, and then you're doing DAST as well when your application is complete, and pen testing it's like a kind of like a check marks before you put the application in production, right? So again, why pen testing, right? Because a lot of the vulnerabilities like site scripting, right? XSS, they only occur when the application is running. So it's very hard for a SaaS tool to kind of find an XSS vulnerability because it won't even happen. You won't even see it early on, right? So that's why you need pen testing, is to find these high severity critical vulnerabilities that are hard to find with traditional automated forms of testing. So it's highly recommended. It's almost like a health check, right? You go to a doctor once a year, get your checkup done. So it's recommended, first to right before production, you do a pen test, put the ash in production, and then once a year, twice a year, you also do a pen test to make sure that the health of your application is good. And a lot of times, it's mandated by regulatory bodies that you do third-party pen testing, and they demand reports from third parties to ensure that your application is healthy and secure.
The report notes that software bills of materials, or SBOMs, SBOM, with a small s, but those are indispensable to manage supply chain risk. And that's a major risk since most software products are assembled rather than written. They have a majority of open source or third-party code. So they're important, but an SBOM isn't a silver bullet either. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the benefits and the limits of SBOMs.
Over the past 3-4 years, there's been, again, a lot of high-profile supply chain attacks. And because of these attacks, President of the US signed the executive order, which kind of mandated a lot of the government contractors and suppliers who supply to government contractors to have an SBOM, which essentially is like an ingredient list of your software. It tells you, here's a list of everything I have in my software, right? So it's mandated not just in the US, but a lot of countries across the globe are mimicking this EO, the executive order, and having similar orders across the globe. So we've seen them in Asia, we've seen them in Europe, and so on. So it's something that's everywhere, right? And again, this SBOM generation we have seen in BSIM for the last couple of years. And the report I mentioned earlier, the Forrester's 2023 State of Application Security, also mentions that supply chain breaches have been reported as the #1 source of breaches in the last 12 months by CISOs and AppSec directors and so on. So it's a huge problem, and that's why SBOMs are seeing a lot of attention these days, and rightly so, right? But it's ironic that people are just talking about SBOMs, like you say, but it's not just generating an SBOM. That's just the beginning, right? So if you generate an SBOM, and if you have all kinds of vulnerabilities, you're just exposing these vulnerabilities to regulatory bodies, to your partners, and to hackers. So you're telling, it's like airing your dirty laundry. You're actually telling, hey, here's my software, and here's everything that's wrong with it. So again, the first step is to patch up, to make your SDLC as secure as possible, to introduce the sec that in DevOps is the DevSecOps, and make sure that you are not generating vulnerabilities in the first place, right? And again, when it comes to third parties, right? So, and open source software, because as you rightly say, 80 to 90% of software these days is formed by third parties and open source components. So and they may have vulnerabilities that you don't know about. So that's where the SCA tool comes in, right? So it's very important to not just have an SBOM, but to have an SCA tool that can actually find the associated vulnerabilities with it, the dependencies, and a SaaS tool as well to find the vulnerabilities within that code. And then the third thing is, once you find the vulnerabilities, you have to actually remedy them as well. So so you're not airing your dirty laundry, right? So it's almost like a three-step process. You generate the SBOM, you use an SCA tool, and then you remedy those vulnerabilities, and that'll make your SBOM actually look good, and it will make the regulatory agencies happy as well.
So an SBOM will help you find it, but if it's broke, you still need to fix it, obviously.
Yes, you need to you need to find it, and then you need to fix it.
Fix it. Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll have to thank you, Chai. We'll have to leave it there. But remember that you can download the 2023 Software Vulnerability Snapshot report, which has considerably more depth and detail than even we've gone into, and it's free on synopsys.com. And thank you for joining us. And until next time, I'm Taylor Armerding with the Synopsys Software Integrity Group. We help organizations build trust into their software.